Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, 4 nerds by nerds, hanging out with
Ted?
Today we're going to give you 3 optional rules to add to your Dungeons and Dragons game. Jump down the description below where you can find Nerdarchy, the newsletter, game weekly tips, as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy. So, as Kurt did, you guys could send us video suggestions, and in this video suggestion, he actually threw out there 3 house rules that he uses, 3 alternate rules options in his game. Wanted to know what we thought about them, if we would use them in our game, and like they're interesting. I will say that. So I think they're worth throwing out there, and maybe some of you guys will find value in them. I will put the written version in the description below so you guys can check it out.
And the place to send those to, if you have GM 901s or video suggestions, is nerdarchy@gmail.com.
Oh no, you told him. I was going to keep it a secret. You seem to be getting a lot of emails lately.
But it's good to get emails. I like talking to the fans.
Oh, okay. All right. So first thing is initiative. The problem with initiative, they thought it seemed kind of static. It's something about the character of the high C rolling poorly.
Okay, so if you've got bad guys here, good guys here. Your rogue and your high dexterous players, they go first.
Yes.
So they move forward to attack. Then the bad guys roll. Well, your fighter with the high AC is way back here, so the other guys get slaughtered because the tank isn't in the battle.
I don't see the problem. I usually have a high AC. They should have made their characters better. I think that's the real problem.
What, in my opinion, this is solved by the party cooperating and saying,
holding their initiative.
I'm going to hold my initiative until the fighter gets out in front.
Yeah.
I'll shoot and then I'll back up. There you go.
Yeah, so there's definitely options that your ranged guys go. Everyone else that would be in melee could hold back, and so that's how we would do it, and that's how we would handle it.
But that has nothing to do with the variant role that Kurt came up with.
Right. At first they tried using passive initiative, and they're like, it worked. It was fast, but it just felt static, as it would because you're using the same numbers all the time, and the same kind of monster is going to go at the same time. So yes, there's not going to be any changes there. They tried rolling for each round, and I think we used to do this back in the day.
Yes. Back in 2nd edition, we would roll every round, initiative would reset, and we'd have to rejockey our positions.
And, while that adds to the chaos of the battlefield, and it seems a little bit more realistic in some ways.
If I could push a button and it would calculate everything, I would like to do that. But having the actual break of, all right, this is the round by round.
Button makers, get on that so Ted can push the button.
Because I think sometimes it's awesome to be like, I just went and now I get to go again.
Yeah,
that's really cool when those kind of things happen. It sucks when it's like I went first, then all of this happened, then all of this happened because I now go last. Oh.
Well, yeah.
But you have to win. You have to have the wins.
But it does give that. So their solution to this was, the problem with that was it just took too much time and made the battles longer. And it's a lot more dice rolling. So their solution was they get a giant dice tower out at the beginning of the game. It might not be giant, but in my mind it's huge. Every time I think about it, it gets a little bigger. And then they grab giant dice and they throw them in the dice tower and they all roll pre-initiative.
It's skill challenges because the things are like 5 pounds.
Yeah, it's like shot puts. so they roll all the initiatives pre-game and the DM has the orders set. So I guess he's just like, all right, this combat, this combat, this combat. Although I don't actually always know how many combats are going to be in my game. So I guess, maybe he just picks a number like, 1 more than they would normally do or something. And they just have that ready to go. And then they can do it. But I don't feel like it's a time saver. I just feel like you shifted the time. And like, I guess they kind of like maybe make a mini game out of it in the beginning. But still, like, I feel like this could take like, 20, 30, maybe 60 minutes all by itself, depending on how many battles you're going to prep for,
right,
and how many rounds you roll for. Like, and what happens if the fight goes longer than you thought, right? Do you kind of like go into the next combat, Well,
maybe you'd recycle back to
that, yeah.
You roll 5 rounds of combat,
and if you go to 6, you go back.
And if you go to 6, you go back to 1. That's the cycle.
You roll a die 10 to see which one you use. More die rolling. Wait, we stop. We have to all stop, reset, and go back to the giant dice tower with our giant D20 or D10s to see which one. You don't like that idea?
No. I think his pre-rolling is they're not rolling round to round; they're rolling combat to combat.
Oh, okay. That could be it as well.
So it's like, all right, well, if we think there's...
They're like, stop. collaborate and listen. And then they roll all their initiative, and then the fight happens. But it comes down to like, all right, we rolled 5 rounds, but we went into 6. Like maybe it should be like a dread tower, right? But with initiative. If you like, you're at round 4, and you're like, all right, we got one more round to wrap this up, or we are boned because
we don't get to go again.
We don't know what happens in round 6. So. And then the second thing that he threw out there, second optional rule, defense. And this is basically he's getting rid of the static defense stats and going with basically a roll off. So I've seen this in other games. I just don't remember exactly where I've seen it.
I have as well, and I don't remember as well. It might have been an optional rule in a previous edition, that as opposed to having that defense of 10 plus your armor class and dex and shield and whatever other bonuses that you want to slap on top of it, it doesn't start off at a 10. It starts off at that d20 roll. So you could be like, all right, for this kind of combat, I rolled a 1. That means my AC is going to suck this round.
Yeah.
Or suck this combat. But then other times you roll that natural 20 and it's like, boom!
Yeah, I am unstoppable!
So now there's different things that I think are good and bad about this. Number 1, it does have things that become more varied, and it's going to allow your players to have that swing of, well, this combat I'm not going to get hit, and oh my god, this combat I'm going to get my ass handed to me. But then it also gives things where your dice manipulators, because there's a handful of different things, your Chaos Sorcerer, your Divine Cleric, here's ways that you can manipulate those, because it's like, all right, well, you've got things that...
Bardic Inspiration might be more important now.
Right. And you could literally be like, all right, well, can I use my Inspiration on my AC roll? Because I don't like what I rolled. So it opens up how many different things can you roll with advantage. Do you allow a feat or a fighter ability that allows you to roll when you're rolling your AC defense with advantage? I think that would be something that would
could a circumstance give you disadvantage?
Right. So I think that would be a really cool fighting style if you're going to use this. As opposed to like a +1 AC, how awesome would it be? Like, well, screw the +1.
I roll with advantage.
I want to roll with advantage, please.
Yeah, it's very dynamic. This one could slow down the game, but doesn't have to. Like, if everyone stays on point and like you got 3 attacks incoming, give me your 3 defense rolls. But listen, we've all been at the table, and you get to the guy, and it's like, oh, it's your turn. Like, and that's when it's his turn. It's not the DM's turn attacking him, right? So there's definitely room for this one to slow down the game a little bit. But it also could be interesting and fun at the same time. And lastly, Scout successes, and they're calling this one the overkill.
So this is a situation where if you've managed to roll a check and you beat it by like 10, there should be some kind of advantage to that. Whether it be I made a knowledge check and the DC was 20 and I got 30, or I made an attack roll and his AC was 15 and I hit 25. Like, there should be something that goes along with it, because you went above and beyond the Call of Duty. And you could not that 5th edition really goes significantly higher and there's not a whole lot of pluses that you can accumulate, but what if the DC was only 10 and you did nail that 30? So, like, I believe for him, every +10, there should be something more to put onto that.
So I on the surface, kind of sounds cool. I do have some issues with this. One is, for example, recently I've been using a bunch of monsters with low ACs, like 11, or a zombie that gets an 8, So literally, these monsters, they're not hard to beat by 10. Especially when you factor in your abilities and stuff. While it's interesting, I feel like there's definitely room where it could be problematic. Now, this isn't the first time I've seen this either. There's precedent for it. It gets used in Open Legend, and basically you can use Banes anytime you beat the number by 10. They just take effect. That's just an extra special ability you get to use. It's part of the game.
So you could literally look at the Open Legend Banes and incorporate some of that into your D&D game. You could literally say, well, all right, since we have the situations where it's attack rolls, I don't think that's going to qualify. You soundly hit, you get to roll your damage. That's the way it works. But maybe on skill checks, where you're making it, and you pass the DC or your opposed check. If it's like a deception insight situation, perhaps there's some other advantage that you can.
I feel like I already kind of do my skill checks that way anyway. Like if I ask for a skill check, the result I make it up determine by how much they beat my DC by, or what they roll. Sometimes I don't even have a DC. I just let them roll. And wow, that's a really good number. I got to give you something, But I feel like I kind of already do that anyway. But the same thing being said, a lot of times if they're trained in a particular skill and they even still roll a low number, I still give them a piece of information.
You give them something. So it might not be the answer they're looking for, but you give something so that it's like, all right, well, players don't always know what they're looking for. So, oh, well, I got something. So that means I made the DC and I've got the information I'm looking for. So it could be something that keeps me on track, or it's totally
Yeah, I think it makes it more interesting. So while I'm not like jumping to add any of these into my game particularly right now, other than the beats it by 10, which is in my Open Legend game I'm running, they are interesting, and I'm always curious to see how their gamers do it. Kurt has been a longtime supporter of ours, and I'm more than happy to do this video. Check out his options. And he also presented them to us in a concise way that we could easily digest.
I think they're really cool. I think that if you, I think if you find a way to change up your initiative, I think it definitely makes the combats more dynamic. I like the idea of the swing on the defense value, because it does make changes, and this guy is impossible to actually hit. So if he rolled that 1, that's great, because that'll lower his armor class by 9. And if he rolls that 20, well, I'm just not going to hit him anyway, because he's got a 40 at that point in time.
Well, but it gets into some other areas, like, okay, well, if you build your character to have a high armor class, then at that point, it becomes a random number. So it's a penalty. Where there's other things in the game where you could literally just focus on, and it doesn't change. Right. So that's the other problem. Like, what are the unintended consequences when you start making these changes? It becomes a domino effect. At the end of the day, though, it doesn't matter. It's whatever's fun for you guys in your game.
Your game in your group, because when you're talking about variant rules, you really need to make sure your players are going to enjoy the options as well.
Yeah, I think like these should definitely be group decisions, or session 0 where you're like, hey, this is what I want to do in this game. Are you guys cool with it? Kind of thing. But let us know what you think in the comments below while you're at it. Like, share, and subscribe.
You can check us out over on nerdarchy.com.
So until next time,
stay nerdy.